Hello. There's an obsession with safety nowadays that when people finish phone conversations, they say, stay safe. And really, I can feel my teeth cracking when I say that. But you see, then I'm a horse rider. Staying safe isn't really an option. Anyway, the Labour Party is passing an online safety act, but they're not content with that anymore. It's supposed to keep people safe, but all it's done is it's encouraged them to get a VPN and carry on as usual, which is what I did when BitChute pulled out of the UK market. So, having discovered, surprise, that people are using VPNs and working around their best intentions, it's amazing how they didn't know about that before, isn't it? Anyway, Guido Fawkes has shown that there's been nearly a 2,000% increase in Proton VPN downloads and a 1,000% increase in NordVPN sign-ups. Do these guys know anything at all about technology? I mean, I was making videos about that very thing months ago when the discussions about online safety first came up. Anyway, having found themselves outflanked by VPNs and 12-year-olds, our Labour Party lords and masters are now discussing how they can ban VPNs. Well, they might do that. The problem with that is it'll not only stop people like me from accessing BitChute, but it'll also shut down almost any business that does any international trade at all, because all but the smallest commercial concerns use VPNs for reasons of security and remote working. A British business is in enough trouble, but this could just about finish them all off. And did I ever tell you the Xerox story? I'll tell you the Xerox story. You see, what happened in Russia was that they didn't want people photocopying books. Subversive literature previously, they called it samizdat, didn't they? They used to type out banned books, but of course that took time, and there was only a limited number of copies you could make before the carbon paper just didn't take the print anymore. So that was all right, but then came the photocopying machine, and then Soviet Russia suddenly realized that this was a real problem. So what they did was they had photocopying machines, which they had to have for government purposes. But they were locked in special rooms, and there were special supervisors who had the key to the room. So you could photocopy only certain pages, and you had to sign off on every page. Well, of course, that slowed everything down, and America just streaked ahead technologically because they could get information faster than anyone in Russia. Anyway, that was a little side issue. The last I heard of it, they were trying to come up with a paper that would not photocopy or would reject certain books that could be photocopied. Anyway, they didn't succeed in coming up with that. And of course, they were wasting a lot of their technological know-how on doing silly stuff like that. But right. So the Labour government want to stop VPNs. Well, they want to stop free speech, basically, and now they discovered that VPNs is a workaround. They want to stop them too. And the free speech issue is very important. It starts off, nicely enough as well-intentioned, if abysmally ignorant attempt to stop kids from hurting each other online, which is a problem, I don't deny that. But it will, as these things always do, it will degenerate into a way of controlling speech and punishing opinions, just generally that the government of the day might disagree with, and that would be the Labour Party and any other party that managed to get control of the country. The problem with the Online Safety Act is that it's replete with complicated legal arguments that are very difficult to come to grips with. I'm quite used to doing research, and to tell you the truth, I'm finding all the legal ins and outs of this act very confusing. And your head can spin. You get overwhelmed by the arguments and the legalities surrounding this issue. I think, though, that it's possible to boil it down to one simple formula. So that's what I'm going to do just for you. Okay, are you waiting for the formula? Government curbs bad, free speech good. Okay? I'm Granniopteryx. Please click like for this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Please share the video if you're not too embarrassed to do so. And if you want to support me financially, I am, of course, very grateful. I have 2 starving horses to feed and shoe and a lot of other stuff. One of my horses got some physiotherapy yesterday. That set me back a bob or two. If you can support me financially, I can assure you that everything I earn on this channel gets frittered away on horseshoes. All right, let's get on with the VPN ban. So this is an article from about 3 years ago, before the Labour Party were in power. The headline is "Labour urges government to consider crackdown on VPNs." So it means they've been talking about this for a while, and they specifically mention Sarah Champion, who was an MP. She said evidence suggested that large numbers of teenagers knew how to use use a VPN, which means that they can avoid age verification controls. I mean, she was seriously worried about it. I want to tell you about Sarah Champion. In 2012, Sarah Champion was speaking out about the Pakistani rape gangs. She got a lot of flack from that. It was terrible, the sort of treatment she got. But in 2012, she was robustly exercising her right to free speech. A right which isn't so much of a right anymore, and could very well have got her into trouble if the laws we have now were in application in 2012, because we have increasingly restrictive ideas of what constitutes hate speech. Back in the day, Miss Champion was a bit of a champion, although recently she's changed somehow. She's been backpedalling to the extent that she voted with the government in its attempt to stop a national inquiry over those same rape gangs about which she was making such a fuss in 2012. I don't know whether she has some residual guilt about this, which has sparked her enthusiasm for online safety, but she certainly was quite worried about it even then. As I said, she said that kids know how to use VPNs, so if companies use age assurance tools as listed in the safety duties of this bill, the bill they were discussing at the time, there's no guarantee they'll provide the protections that are needed. And she's right. The thing about Sarah Champion is she's concentrating on the safety of children online more than she's concentrating on the free speech that would expose this sort of harm. By the way, I'll leave a link to the government's self-justification for their new law, and I'm leaving that link because the whole thing is far too long to read out. You may remember what I previously said about when people use too many words, it should flash a red light with regard to their honesty. Anyway, if you're interested in their bill and their self-justification, it's there in the description. Meanwhile, I can tell you that the Act includes demands that platforms that use encryption must scan for child sexual abuse material, which of course means that platforms will be acting as backdoor spies for the government. And since there's no technology yet that will preserve privacy in such a situation, the chances of leakage are high. Just imagine a business that's sending top secret stuff from one department to another. There's no guarantee that a government spy can get a backdoor into their top secret correspondence and then sell it to the highest bidder. It's for this reason that tech companies like Signal say they'll pull out of the UK rather than comply with a weakening of their encryption protocols, because nobody's going to use them if they know they can be broken into. And then, of course, the whole thing, I keep saying it's a threat to free speech, and now I have to tell you why I think so. Just look at how the hate speech laws have been corrupted. They started out as a sort of general, it won't be applied in any but the most serious cases type of attitude, the airy, dismissive attitude to it. And now look, you get sort of arrested for hate speech if you complain in an online local neighbourhood group about the way the school is choosing a new school principal. It's just gone mad, and that's how it'll go with the Online Safety Act as well. And that's not just the government, of course. If the platforms are going to be held responsible for finding infractions of the law, the platforms themselves will end up getting heavy-handed with the censorship. After all, they have number one to think of. They have their shareholders to think of. And if they aren't really strict about it, they could end up with a set of eye-watering fines for a single misstep. And, I might say, a misstep which has no explicit definition. For instance, what exactly is meant by words such as harm? In some contexts, it's become a word that means nothing at all. It's entirely subjective, and its application will be open to all sorts of abuse and unjust and biased interpretation, depending on whatever organisations decided that it's harmful. So what are the platforms going to do? Well, most of the big ones will be able to afford a lot of complicated risk assessments and regulations, which will stifle free speech, as I said, but will keep them safe. And that would be bad enough if it's just them, but it isn't. It's been pointed out that this will also apply in just the same way to platforms as lowly as your local knitting group. Do you think an outfit of that sort has the resources to do risk assessments for online harm? I use Knitting Group because they're likely to be discussing stuff like sharp objects. And if some kid comes online and sees them discussing sharp objects and then damages him, or more likely herself, with a sharp object, the outraged parents could blame that particular Facebook page. Scissors, for instance, razors, pointy crochet hooks. Who knows? And don't even talk about what could happen if one of the parties starts singing the praises of box cutters as a more efficient way of slicing worsted. And this is, of course, all provided that the technology will be in any way efficient, which it won't. It's not even been properly developed yet. So we're going to get a lot of false positives. No, this act is going to cause chaos. It's going to suffocate businesses, and it's certainly going to kill free speech. The Tao Te Ching, the Chinese book of philosophy, I don't know, Lao Tzu said Trying to govern a large country is like trying to boil a small fish in a large pot. It just disintegrates and goes all over the place. And that's what's happening here. Labour, being a socialist ethos, think they can control everything. Well, they should just look at the Soviet Union to find out how easy that was. So anyway, there's a lot more about all of this, and I can't go into it because it would take hours, and that's the problem. A lot of MPs don't have that sort of time. They are actually very busy, and a lot of them, even if they did have the time, and even if they did have the courage to contradict their party line, they might have the intestinal fortitude, but it's very likely they don't have the mentality to come to grips with what they'd be reading in the reports and the documentation, because this is specialised stuff, and we can see from well-intentioned people like Sarah Champion, whom I mentioned before, they don't really understand the reach or the significance of the laws they're trying to push through. I understand her. Her concentration is the safety of children, so that's where she's focused. And many of the MPs are in the same boat. But there are a lot of lawmakers who are just gobsmackingly low tech. Do you remember that Hillary Clinton comment? Somebody talked about the fact that she should clean her computer, and she said, what, with a polishing cloth, something like that. She had no idea. So, and I don't think a lot of MPs are any better, really. I mean, they might know about cleaning computers, that's very basic, but this sort of thing, the technicalities of online harm, they are overreaching, and these guys don't know what sort of Pandora's box they're opening. It's like it's like they're starting some social system that's so concerned about the safety of women that it won't let them leave the house without a chaperone for fear of them being harassed, or worse, of misbehaving. It's sort of like there's a social system that's so worried about women being molested that for their own safety, it demands that they hide themselves in loose garments from head to foot, and even cover their faces so as not to present a temptation to any passing man. It would restrict their speech. It would restrict their ability to recognise a friend out in the street. It would even prevent their own children from recognising them. It would form a barrier between them and everyone else surrounding them. But it would keep them safe. Not that such a thing would ever happen, of course. Oh, wait. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.